to see if there were any that did understand and seek God. Here to talk to you today about how that God is our King. He's not our president. He's not someone that we put into power. He's someone that's in power all of his own. You can sit down. In Bible times, kings ruled over kingdoms. They sat in their court, and when people came in, they had to be invited into the presence of the king. And if they weren't invited, he had the power to not hold out his scepter and they would die, or he could hold out his scepter in mercy and let them come in. That's a powerful image today, that God, as our King, has that power. He has the power of life and the power of death. And back in the Old Testament times, one person could come into the presence of God once per year and offer a sacrifice for the sins of mankind. Once a year, people could enter into the presence of God. But God wanted to have relationship with man. God wanted to be able to communicate with man like he did in the Garden of Eden. God wasn't satisfied with this temporary little thing of them bringing him an offering to push the sin back. He didn't want that. He wanted to have a relationship with us. Now, before I get into what he did to solve that problem, let's focus on God as our King for a moment. People around us, they have all their different opinions and beliefs and ideas about who God is or whether God exists. And in this democratic country that we live in, we have this picture of leadership that, okay, this person is there because we put them there. This person is there because I voted for that person, or a bunch of other people did and I didn't. But this person is in power because people put him there. But God, he's our King. He isn't someone that we put into a place of power because we worship him. He's in a place of power, and that's why we worship him. There's a strong difference there. God exists in power on his own. He doesn't need us to put him in that place of power. So when people choose not to believe in God, and when people choose not to connect with God, God is still there in a place of power. God is still there wanting to connect with them. He still has the power.
Praise God. Praise God. Yes, he
Because
does.
he's our King. So he's not affected by our opinions of him. We don't have to have this big idea and concept of God for him to be big and powerful. He exists apart from that. That's why we say, oh, we're magnifying God. It's because we have this tiny perception of what God is. And then we put on the lens of praise and worship, and then that magnifies him.
Yes.
It magnifies him because we're able to see him a little bit closer to what he actually
Praise
is.
God. Praise God.
He existed before the beginning of time. He didn't need me to trust in him for him to create the heavens and the earth. He didn't need for me to believe in him for him to come and die to save my soul. He did that before I made a decision to connect with him. He did all of this before we were even here, before we even breathed the breath of life.
Right. Praise God.
So now we have a little bit of a picture of what a king is, what kind of power a king has.
Right.
But Jesus came, he took the sin on himself so that we could enter into his presence without being judged, so that we could enter in and he was judged for us so that we didn't have to die. That's powerful. Picture for a moment, Queen of England. She decides to become a commoner. She decides to come to Kingston into your house and to take all of the bad things you've done onto herself and to die because of it. That's a crazy image. That's something that we can't even picture. But that is what God did for us. God took all of our sin on him, was judged in our place so that we could have a relationship with him.
Right. Yes. Amen.
And that is so powerful this morning.
Yes.
He died a brutal death so that we could approach God without suffering judgment.
Right, right,
He died to eliminate my sin and yours.
right. Yes, he did.
The ones that we fight against, the ones that we've overcome already, every single sin in your life, He died to eliminate that.
Praise the Lord. Yes.
That's a powerful thought and one we can't afford to miss.
Right.
God the King died for us.
Yes, thank you, Jesus.
Amen.
That's right.
This was His mission. Luke 4:18 says, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because He's anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives, recovering of sight to the blind, and to set at liberty those that are bruised." He came to give us hope, life, freedom, everything that is good.
Right.
So thirsty. But how do we apply this message today? How do we